Hello everyone, welcome back to today's episode. Today we have a special guest from Malaysia. Many of you may have known that I actually came from Malaysia. So when I met someone from Malaysia in my support group with Petflin, Petflin spot passive income, and I was so excited. Now I am inviting him to share his history and knowledge and story with us. And he's actually the CEO of his own consulting company. And are you ready to hear from him? Let's go. And before I go further, make sure you click like, subscribe, and leave a comment. What is your number one takeaway from today's stories? And by the way, I'm launching my academy, and if you'd like to join my academy, it is only for people who are 50 and over. I'm sorry if you are younger than that, but for me, it's very close to my heart because I'm already 53. I think people in this group, 50 and over, they have a lot of opportunity to really go further. Well, many people think that, it's time for retirement. No, it's actually, we don't think that way. So let's go and speak to Mr. Kuah from Malaysia. Ta-da!
Hello.
Mr. Kuah, Mr. CEO from Malaysia. And I will call you Elton, if you don't mind. Yes?
Yes, please call me Elton. So Mr. Kuah looks very, very...
Yeah, that's normal. I know. So, yeah, as you know that I have business background and you are focusing on your business to business, would it be possible to tell us more about your background and your business?
Okay. So that's for thanks to Sarah for inviting me for the podcast today, interviews. And I think to start off the story, maybe I need to go a little bit on my education background. So basically, I'm an engineer turned entrepreneur. That's actually how I term myself in the new work that I'm doing. Right now, most people know me by that. So I actually started in a professional degree in electrical engineering from UK, and then I work in my field for a couple of years before I move on to my job of doing marketing strategy, market research, and also some of this online marketplaces. So these are the things that when I do my business, normally a lot of small business owners will ask like, how do I build my presence online, and then how do I go myself to build a system of growth marketing term, which I'm using right now for using AI as a marketing tool to scale your business further. So that is the things where I differentiate myself from a lot of competitors who sell similar services. So that is a little bit brief of what I do. Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So your business to business, like, what kind of business do you serve? Are you able to serve my business in a way like I'm confidenceperformance.com? For those who don't know, my background is more into fitness, health, wellness, taekwondo, high performance. So what do you think your business to business framework can help my business?
Okay, so let's say for those audience who's going to watch later, I have to explain a little bit like when business to business, what is business to consumer, just a little bit overview. So business to business say that if I serve company like e-commerce, say Shopify, so that is a business entity that I serve. So let's say if you are doing it under confidence performance, obviously a company has to be formed as a name confidence performance. But founder like you says as Sarah, so it's more like a consumer like individual. So it depends like if the audience is an individual or a entity, a company who serve individual customers. So let's take on the framework part, for example. There are a certain part where you can apply like identifying your audience. So let's say if I'm doing coaching and consulting, so I do coach like consultants about how they can grow their profile online presence on LinkedIn. That is one example that you can use for people to find you. So a lot of people, when I try to experiment this round, they use a hashtag like find a pro, find confidence, or build better performance. So these are the terms like where we call as online using a keyword search. So imagine if somebody says, I want to build a confidence performance. The first thing that pops up on the Google search should be your website called Confidence Performance. Because I'm doing it now for my test, say the podcast, Tao of Online Business. My Tao Online Business currently is sitting on the page 1, second to fourth ranking. Yeah, so that is a way to start where you think where your audience is be. Secondly is how do you make yourself appear to the audience, because audience doesn't know that you exist. So it has to be a match. So that's where my service comes in that way. Yeah.
Or like it's more into SEO then.
SEO is the activity that you do. But basically, if you are doing now in SEO, right? So this is mostly business people, they know, I use keyword search, use SEO to find you. The technique to do the SEO is where the different service provider will change. Some, they use a special way to get more traffic come to your website. So meaning that how many people can see your website. Maybe some they will do podcasting, some they will do a content, they do write article, some they will do live video. So there are cases where you can use different channel, and where your channel is strongest is where the best key to find your customer engagement. Because now people, and they have tools like Facebook, TikTok all appears now. They tend to like to see a lot of interaction and the face of the real person, just like how we are doing now. You can't just hear my voice. Sometimes people want to see my face. Sometimes people want to see my case study. Sometimes they'll see a lot of things. So we are thinking along that way to give more value to the customers that I serve as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, in terms of SEO, like search, for those who don't know what is SEO, search
Yeah.
engine optimization, I learned that there are many ways of doing that, and some marketing guru, they do not believe in SEO. What do you think about it?
That is a very interesting question right now. So for those who think SEO is like what the guru always says, so we always say that Google is always the best guru to teach everybody else, because when they change the landscape, a lot of things that we always have to adapt to what Google wants. So a lot of times when the guru pitches what they think used to work a couple of years ago, suddenly from the last year, Google made a very significant change. So you have to adapt to that changes. So it's like, for instance, now, if you notice writing the content article, because that's where my real expertise in writing content generation, right? Last time, Google will put every keyword in headline, in your description. You call it H1, H2, like your main paragraph, your subtitles. So there will be some keywords you need to put in there. Now they are more interested to see that whether a content is written in by an expert. So they call it as an EAT principle, meaning that your content has to be authoritative enough, like third party willing to share your post. So they will measure that. Even now, I think if I write section by section paragraph, right, each paragraph will be their own SEO. So we are actually also like thinking how to make each paragraph follows each EAT compliance. So there's a lot of these changes. So if you use a human being to try to do it, this is where the gurus doesn't tell you. The human guy who does this needs to constantly adapt to all these changes. Not everybody knows how to do all this. Yeah, so they'll come up with this AI machine learning tool. They'll ask you to write certain keywords and then they'll generate out all the title headline. That is where a lot of genre comes in. So if you work with a human being who do the technology, you will probably need to find out whether he knows how to build a certain solution to create those goals. That is where my actual value will comes in a lot, because we are writing a lot of use case for this different industry. So like B2B, like consulting firm, they like to use case study to do SEO, for instance, right? So that is one. Let's say if I'm doing for individual consultancy or online coaching. So now in Malaysia, the famous trend is they like to do a lot of live sessions to potentially introduce themselves to the co-audience that don't know them. But somehow they find a way in the middle of the discussion, like how do I engage the audience? So that's where the online coach like to play a lot of gamification. They like to do a lot of new brainstorming idea using mural. So they will use all this, right? Then they will introduce that description of the tool as a way to attract the audience.
Wow, yeah, that comes to very technicality of the business. So,
Yeah.
can I say that you are also a marketing guru?
Well, I'm trying to be better than marketing guru. So guru actually in Asia, a lot of them like using it as a term where people like to spam others. So unfortunately, I don't know in Asia why we have been dealing with that. We like on my end to be called as practitioner of the industry. Why there's a term like practitioners? So for brands who, let's say like L'Oreal or those beauty brands that they like to understand like how do I solve a certain problem within their customer circle. So if I can demonstrate how to do the problem solving part, that is where they will differentiate a practitioner versus a guru who talks on stage. So that's kind of a distinction that matters. So even in Canada, I believe in US, right, a lot of experts. So that is another term that I hear as well. So they like to spell expertise like via doing podcasts and then like who listens to the podcast. So they like to pick those names that, I have celebrities in my clubhouse. Like let's say for instance, I use Pat, right? Or Pat was in my podcast and speaking. So that gives a lot of content authority to people before they engage you. So a lot of times that's where the best practice comes in.
Oh, that's cool to know. That's cool to know.
Yeah.
Like I know a guru, marketing guru, he always say, "Oh, I don't believe in SEO. I only believe in paid marketing." So, what do you think about paid marketing versus SEO? Which one should we?
Right. So for those like paid marketing, like the audience who's going to listen, right? Anything that you pay to Google to advertise yourself, that's paid marketing. You pay to Facebook, they use the term like Facebook ads, that's also paid marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would say that if you understand of marketing terms, right, they are awareness, interest, desire, action, the AIDA framework. So coming to paid versus search, you will need both as the beginning, like where SEO is doing for long-term brand maintenance. Paid is mainly doing for short-term campaigns. So let's say if I'm doing a lot of e-commerce business that I do, so I will get paid to try to filter whether there's a demand for certain product. But in the long term, like if let's say my industry is very competitive, so now this let's say like e-commerce starting to be competitive, travel eventually will be competitive once everything is back to normal pre-COVID. You will need something to stand out among the others, and that's where SEO comes more important. So the ratio of the activities comes in.
Oh, wow. So a lot to learn from you. I'm just curious, like, why did you move to entrepreneurship, where you have a degree in electrical engineering and
Yeah.
from the UK, right? Yeah.
That's a very interesting and also I think it's somewhat very like coincidental accident kind of scenario. So I was working for 6 years in two multinational companies, and then my second job when I was working engineering field, I was posted to China for a project that I was doing. Yeah, so I was actually, for those who do not know my background, right? So I actually used to construct with a team the largest cigarette factory in Hangzhou, China, which is
What's
so
that? What's that?
important.
What's that? Would you mind repeat again? What is that?
It's a cigarette warehouse factory. So it's like you like to show yen, right? There's a different class of grade for cigarette. The black color one is used for the big bosses. So we construct the warehouse for that one.
Oh,
And
wow.
that is the production was about 20 million. So imagine that if you sell for $1 of those, how much the factory earns per month or per quarter, I forgot, but definitely the volume is 20 million. So when I went there in the early days, that was in 10 years, more than 10 years ago. I think that was before I started my business, right? So I saw that Alibaba was there. So that my first experience looking at entrepreneurship, which I didn't tell it at that time, was seeing how Alibaba actually starts to operate, because my place that I work is nearby their center, and then they became like one of the giants today. So that was the story that how I first come across a signage of entrepreneurship kind of scenario. The spark that comes around it as well. So I also think that when I was seeing the incident where some businesses actually sprout off nowhere and then they actually get expanded, and then when I come back to Malaysia, I was thinking like, why can't we just doing something different in our life? So I see my boss also, like when you're working with people, especially those employed, right? So my boss stayed in that company for 10 years in the same firm. I think he only promoted one time, and I was saying that, do I want to live for the whole rest of my life just to work hard like him 12 hours and strive for promotion and do everything that you need to rise up corporate ladder? So there is a common commotion like, will it be a challenge that I want to try myself to give a better life? or do I want to stay in the job? So I choose to learn more about what this entrepreneurship is about. In 2008, all that, right? There's only thing that exists was called social media, called Facebook. It was still very new. So I went to that to connect with people, businesses, right? So there's a lot of things that, people actually start to see what I'm doing and then they start to ask. So I was traveling back and forth between Malaysia and Singapore every weekend for 9 months before I quit my business. So that's another thing that I did. Took a long time before I leave. So therefore, if you are thinking to start business, I think this is something very important, regardless which part of my world. So you need to do a lot of soul searching. In my case, is to find out why I want to start that business. So a lot of people, they start because they want to earn money. That's not a right reason. My purpose was to see that how can I give better impact through my marketing knowledge and through what I do for my company. Can I do better than myself when I work for my own? So that is my real reason about why I start my business. And secondly is, when you start, do you realize that there's a condition that ideal for you to start? So a lot of times that some people say, I want to start business, but I got no money, I got no network, and I have no physical idea what I want to do. So this is a very normal scenario that I always come across, like in my life. So I happen to bump into a friend who later becomes a partner, and we just start something. So there's a term that we use, was like, you call it accidental entrepreneurship in English. Yeah, sometimes in layman terms you say zomban also can. In Malay you say just langgar also. So there's a flavor that we use, like we need to do something to see that whether this thing works. So a lot of people don't have courage to start something. This is very common for those who works in among my personal experience, this is my personal view, they like to work in a stable job. They don't like to leave the company. Now the trend changes is, the more capable I am in my company, the more willing I want to leave to try something new, to challenge myself. There's a difference now between 10 years ago when I first started the business, why people started it. Yeah, so that is a very brief, long story short. So I did wrote this, just to recap, right? I did a podcast about this story of mine where I featured a book with 19 other SME entrepreneurs in Singapore. So this book title called Are You Ready to Be Next Entrepreneur? It explains more in depth like what certain decision I made to try this out, and then do I make mistakes, and how do I go around building a better idea with the business.
Wow. Wow, interesting, very interesting story. I'm sure your business has been giving impact to many people.
Yeah.
What is the business name? We are very interested to know, like, how can we find out more about your business, how you can help people and their businesses?
If my business name is called Enrich Social Media. So the reason why I started is to connect people better through social media. That was the purpose 10 years ago. Now, if I'm bringing forward the time machine to the current COVID year, we will term ourselves like company that solve problem that matters, marketing problem that matters. That is how the message the company is doing now. So if let's say I want to start helping entrepreneurs, so I'm working with government for some training of digital entrepreneurship. So that is a recent news that we are doing. How we are doing it is, the method will be, we could give them a small business idea. They will giving a small business grant for those do online businesses, and then I give them a free logo subsidy. So in fact, we're actually doing now like exercise, doing free logo for about 100 SMEs lah. That means they don't have to pay for logo design, all that we are doing it for them from my end. So sponsor under the house. So if you are thinking like, out of these 100 companies that we help, how many of them can succeed to next level? Say, I got my products known by this customer from X amount of countries who buys my business during COVID. That is already a very significant impact because a lot of people now, they lose their job. So the next thing is, they are thinking now how they can survive for next 6 months. This is a very common scenario now that I'm seeing in Malaysia. I'm not sure how it's in Canada. We are bringing those ideas like from what I learned from Alibaba Business School. How do I best serve others benefit, which is they call it as altruism. So Alibaba, when they first started the business in 2008, so I was lucky participant in this business school when they teach like how did they build a small entity called Taobao, which is you buy your Chinese products through online, and they subsequently beat eBay in their own terms. Yeah,
Wow.
eBay is like a 10 times larger competitor than Taobao. So that story is actually very interesting story. So the way like a secret sauce, a little bit how they are doing is they remove the barriers where buyers and sellers can communicate each other through the platform. Whereas in eBay, they do not allow this because they believe that once the buyer knows who's the customer, and once the seller knows who's the customer, they won't use the platform. So another part is how in my work now, how do you remove the barrier to entry for people to get the better value of my business? That's why we are doing it like use cases, online resource library. I give them logo for subsidy for free. Yeah, everything because of COVID now we learn to empathize a lot with our customer.
Wow. Wow. Interesting to know. Would it be possible to tell the audience your website, the one with social media and your current consulting firm?
That is actually esm.agency. Yeah. E for my name, Elton. S for soccer, and M for Malaysia.
Elton Soccer. You like to play soccer?
Euro 2020 mode.
Oh. So dot
Agency.
agency, esm.agency.com.
No, just esm.agency.
Oh, just esm.agency. That's it? That's your website?
Yes. Yeah, that's the current
How about
website.
the other one, the Elton Consulting one, the other one?
That is the personal one. So I will be removing, I'll maintain that as my personal capacity to individual consulting. So back to business, why I name it in two different domains. So for those who understands like branding, one, if I want to serve individual better in my capacity, I'll still remain that domain name. And possibly that is also one way to approach the customer individually from my end. If I want to build a team to service more of other customer potential, and using the company to front for investment in future. So that esm.agency is going to be the company. Yeah.
Oh, so you're okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Agency, marketing agency. Is that
Yes.
marketing
Yeah.
agency?
That is like a marketing agency plus service marketplaces. So there's things that I'm rolling out on that one.
Yeah, that is a very good model, right? Especially during pandemic lockdown, many businesses went bankrupt. I think many businesses also realized that e-business, e-commerce, and online business is the way to go for the future, right? Or at least for the near future. What do you think about it?
That is a very good question that you bring up actually. So right now, when I look at building e-commerce, is people feel there's a need to drive up their presence in the store because their retail stores cannot be open. That is in my case right now. Like people used to be very comfortable serving from their shops, and then like now they can't open the stores because the COVID comes in. Yeah, people scared getting infected. So now they have no choice but to open up the stores online. That is the first main reason they open it. And then now when I come to the second part is once they open up the broad store, it's called a build brand awareness. The next thing is how do they get their customers to come and know about their stores and subsequently need to connect with them to engage. Then only there's a chance for them to buy or sell something to their customer. So the point of the question is, how do you think the current engagement, say in the local cafes, will it be able to replicate online? That is a digital experience that the business need to think of. So a lot of challenge now is when you talk about B2B, they have a lot of resources to build all these experiences lah. So if I go for Shopify, you know how Shopify looks like, and then like you just click your my stores, but you also know that it's the customer support is friendly. So a lot of people very really getting scammed through online if I use my credit card to pay, right? So that is also one of the challenge where you need to think a lot of like how to build a better experience for the people and make sure that you're safe and trustworthy lah, because that's how your reputation is built by the small retail owner. So I'm using a lot of small retail owner because they have a lot of good products, sometimes they don't know how to explain the story well, but people tend to talk about them. Let's say it's good. So Malaysia, food is the king heaven. So every day the good food. You always talk about it online.
Yeah. Malaysia is very famous with food.
Yeah.
I miss Malaysian food very, very much. The
You should check out the the durian now. That's a famous brand in pandemic. This owner built 10,000 durian sales
online.
by using but yes, all purely online because of pandemic.
Wow. See,
Uh,
I think everyone should look into online business. I mean, not everyone, but every owner.
it's good to evaluate it, like how the future is going to be like, because another part which I want to bring up to this, right? So now in China, which I was in Alibaba Business School, and now I'm in another e-competition program through the Chinese one. They actually use a
Competition
lot.
program? What do you mean, like competition program?
Yeah, it's like a e-commerce kind of a case study. So they have sponsored by the government of China to do this. So
Wow.
now, like, participants come in, they learn the best practices, like how the Chinese are building digital business in their own industry sector. So now, not just only I'm seeing like stores, retail. Sometimes I know that even a service provider like employer marketplace, maybe like Fiverr and Hour, right? So in China, I realized that now they are doing it a professional type of service provider, which I just came to realize that they have these platforms to do it, and then they can vet the individuals. So if you've been to China, you know that there's a lot of scam cases where you can't verify your identity. Sometimes in China, they used to buy a lot of goods that are fake, right? So now they have a way to build the trust with the customers that wants to know them. And then subsequently, they know who is the more innovative version or who's the more professional people. Yeah, that is something new that I just found out also.
Oh.
All this adoption of technology. Yeah. So if you're talking about AI adoption, I think China is actually leading in the world right now by application industry.
Yeah, many AI tools are available now online, especially the one for writing. Like you get
Yeah.
so many offer now, like AI writing with the AI, and create your blog with AI, and do your sales page with AI. Everything is AI now. But I don't know why I hardly see any AI product from China in the market. Especially, I'm a fan of AppSumo. So, what do you think about it? How can I find AI product from China?
Oh, well, China is a big market by itself, so they don't need to sell themselves outside of China. That's one thing
No
that I
wonder.
realized. Yeah, but if you're talking like the big companies, what actually the challenge of adoption we are using AI for small business? Like they would say that AI is not something that is relatable to me. So for instance, like if I'm copywriter, the AI cannot duplicate what the copywriter has a knowledge that he studied for 10 years. So that's where that some industries don't like to adopt AI. Yeah, I can say that simply if I say used to sell to countries that are high regulation or security. So if I go inside Canada, I'll have this AI tool from China. The chances are there will be some rejection because you do not comply with the local industry standard. Secondly, is they perceive that this AI tool does not respect the intellectual property of the individual. So we already like in the sessions that brainstorming I was in during this learning experience now. Yeah, that is the issue that we also talk about it, like ethical management, like IP knowledge management. Yeah, that surprisingly China is also aware of this.
That's very interesting. Like, how do people manage that? Like for me, many people like AI because it save a lot of money, save a lot of time, but at the
Yeah.
same, of course, you don't get the actual humans interaction, but also human
Yeah,
knowledge.
so for
Human,
instance, like if you are like Tony Robbins or Seth Godin, you probably know that they are the core OGs in the industry. So OGs is the old guys, very experienced season. You want to duplicate AI that has the knowledge of how Seth Godin does the marketing message, you probably need a lot of version of very premium AI tools and you need to access to his brain. So that is a distinction. Like AI can do a certain routine job, but if you want to do like a very creative marketing campaign that is out of this world, you need the human guys to still do the job as well. That is something that you will need a human being versus the AI technology to work together. So small businesses actually don't have resources to manage this at a more cost-effective scale. So one thing issue is in practical terms, if I'm doing business, you need some capital to fund it, but you have to know where's the demand to actually drive a lot of revenue so that you can self-sustain the business. That is actually another real-life challenge now, especially in COVID, where cash is king really matters at this point of time.
Well, yeah, cash is king, cash flow. So that for you to have this marketing agency in Malaysia, is it very competitive in Malaysia, or are you one of the pioneer in this field?
Well, I think if I'm running it from Malaysia, while I would actually serving the customers all from the States, that's actually my real customer is. So the convention right now in Malaysia, I don't design the business just to run it on Malaysia. We want to serve as an Asian country. I'm actually based in China before, so eventually now I'm starting inroad for China. That is the new experiment that we're running through. Like how do we package Chinese marketing solutions to come in? So as I think the nature of the business, right? So the digital space changes so often. We cannot maintain the market positions in any time unless if I'm running a lot on the agency scale for the big ones. So I need to hire 30 staff every day, have to do a lot of campaign brief to client to serve, and then go for award-winning kind of competition. So a lot of marketing agency, the big brands, they like to do all this to maintain the customers like revenue. So a lot of the customers know them because we won some award for marketing campaign. That one takes a lot of effort and money to do. So in a challenge of entrepreneur, right, if I'm running it now, you think through the activity that you're doing, is it fitting to your ideal lifestyle that you want to achieve? Because ultimately, when I run through the business, and I think Sarah also, you talked a little bit about your thinking, which I also agree. Like knowing what you want to gain at the end is actually quite important, or very important in my case. Yeah, so if you have some end in your mind, you will start at the end of your mind and see when you work backwards through your activity scale and all that, does it fit into that end goal that you want to achieve?
Yes, I always think that way. It's kind of interesting that no one taught me that. I had that kind of thinking when I was a kid. I always think the end of mine, at the end, what do I wanted to achieve? Then I work back. Yeah, it's like, I wanted to be Olympian. That's my end goal. So I work backward. So if I wanted to be an Olympian, what should I do? In terms of training, in terms of competition, in terms of my health, in terms of food, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I think like you, if I know Sarah earlier, maybe I want to be Olympic in my industry. How do I turn myself as an Olympic criteria? I have to build some criteria to achieve.
It is important. I think this kind of mindset is important in all areas of life, in business, in sports, in career movement.
Yeah,
I know that that saves you a lot of time and money. So that you don't go and try this and try that and AB without the end goal that may end up, wasting your time and money. Because sometimes if you don't have an end goal, you may be easily shifted or being carried to a point that you may not want to go, but because of peer pressure and because of whatever pressure or political pressure, whatever is it, that you may end up in different direction. So, but if you have an end goal in mind, you also focus, you're so committed, it's like nothing can change you. Because when you have an end goal in mind, you work towards that end goal, you may encounter many distractions. Many people may try to pull you away, and maybe obstacles or difficulties in life may try to pull you away. But when you have the end goal in mind and you are so focused and nothing can pull you away, then you eventually will achieve your goal. But it's important to have the end goal in mind so that you know what you want. Like, what do you want? Like, why? You know the why, you know the how, you know the especially the why is very important. Like, why do you want it? Like, when do you want it? Like, if you don't have that, then you may be distracted by, we call it like a shining object in
Yeah,
life.
shiny object syndrome.
I know, like, oh, this is good too. Oh, okay, let's go to the A. Instead of you go to the K, you were distracted. You say, oh, I want to go to, maybe I go to the M. M looks more attractive, right? Or I go to the C. C more look, they look more attractive. You are kind of everywhere. Yeah, it's important to have that end goal in mind. Yeah, just like you have the end goal in mind. You know what you want to do. I'm sure you're gonna do very well in Malaysia. I'm sure you are one of the marketing the guru in
Yeah.
Malaysia. So I will encourage all Malaysians who you are listening here. Make sure you check out Elton Kuah's CEO of his the company. Again, is ESM.agency, correct?
Thank you. You got it right.
I'm good. I still have good memory. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So if you can pronounce the name easy, that means my branding is doing very well, because let's make it easy for people to remember.
Yeah. It's actually very easy to remember. ESM. E for Elton, S for soccer, you said, and M for Malaysia, and the agency. Check it out. I actually posted in my description and on my screen. So I think it's important to have that kind of mentality. Know what you want to go, know what you want to serve, and also know the why. Why is really important. At the end, you may want to ask yourself, like, so what, right? Ask yourself, so what? You have achieved A, and then you say, so what? Achieve B, and then you say, so what? For me, if you keep asking yourself, so what, then you may end up having a higher goal in a way that you have the end in mind. That will push you maybe harder or maybe
Yeah.
smarter.
But I can give one simple idea about how to go around this. So I learned something new right now, like in called Theory Youth. So what they teach is self-awareness. So let's say if I write a letter to myself, so I post it to myself, say 10 years from now when I'm 50 years old, for instance. So you open up the letter and you think, what is the correct message that I want to receive when I open up my letter this time? So you can try to train with your son. You can think that what he writes right now, let's assuming that he hasn't started a business, right? So think forward like 20 years later. So the letter shouldn't be open until 20 years later. And then you see how he thinks at that time. Does it reach the end goal that he thinks when he first started it? So that was the exercise that I'm going through, like self-awareness exercise. Oh.
Yeah, that's a very, very good strategy. Very good skill to have. Yeah, for those who are not following my Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube channel yet, I actually have a video about goal setting. At the end of my video, I talk about write a letter to your future you. Website. Check my video. I'm going to show it here.
Okay.
In YouTube, if you look at my YouTube, I will say this here. Click the link here, and it will bring you to goal setting video. At the end of the video, I talk about how to write a letter to yourself, to motivate yourself. I actually asked my kids to write a letter to themselves. I think I said 10 years from now, something like that. I don't remember how many years, but I did write a letter to myself as well. And then on that day and time of the year, you will receive an email. The email will say, "Hey, this is your letter to yourself," like that. It's really fun.
That's a new one.
Yeah. Is everything taken care of? You just enter your information and you enter your email, and then by that time of the year, you will receive that email. It's really fun. Yeah, check it out, everyone. Yeah. So another questions. Last but not least, hopefully, everyone is still listening here. Last but not least, what is your advice to Malaysian and people around the world if they would like to create or have their own business first thing, and or have their own B2B like you? And finally, what is your advice to them, and what are the mistakes that they should avoid?
Oh, now it's going to be a very lengthy explanation. So I need to think of how best way to summarize the key points. There's a moment to think about. I have spoken about the why is the most critical fundamental. So I will stick with that one point for that purpose. When you start a business, always think about why you are doing this. Why does your family thinks that it's the right thing for you to do this? So I think the one mistake that I wish I would know earlier is my family wasn't too happy about when I first started my business because of uncertainty. Yeah, she didn't talk much to me like in the first few months when I started. So a lot of, I think, in Asian culture, they tend to be very skeptical until they see a certain success that, oh, this thing really works. So as an Asian parents, you have like they're concerned about you getting education and make sure that you do well in your conservative or stable job, and you make sure that you settle things nicely in your life 10 years later. But I realized that maybe that's not the life that I really want when I first started it, right? So for those who thinks that you may not agree with your mom says, try to understand from her perspective, like why she will object or she may not agree with a certain opinion. This is a very important life message that I want to bring in. So there's a wisdom, like when you listen to elders, take the good points like what they're trying to share behind the reason. So you may realize that in my case especially, communication, empathy can be a very big deal. Like you don't accept people who don't agree with your idea principles, but try to see from their point like why they don't agree and how to get their support in so that you can perform well in your business. So I think the life commitment, when you put 100% or something, make sure try to identify what's your most important things that can ensure you deliver your commitment. So business wise, you cannot say I do half 50% and then try to do half 50% of your job. That doesn't work for me at all. Unfortunately, that's my real life experience. Like you get very tired easily. So I work like until 16 hours for first few years. Yeah, so imagine now you're asking who can start for 16 years. Not many people can give you the answer like what you want to spend for that 16 hours a day to do your work. So another point which I want to bring up also is support network will be a key. So let's say my mom or your wife is one of a support network. Think of also ways that before I quit the job now, especially looking at the market landscape now is very competitive. So you're not talking just in Malaysia. Our competitors can be all over the world, surprisingly, with the globalization, right?
Yeah.
Try to figure out also like when you do this business, how would you think that your business can last with a certain amount of customers that supports in, why they will support your value of your business. So that was actually something I learned now after running it for 10 years, decade. And now because I don't like to think myself as a Malaysian entity, I like to bring up myself a standard where I can compete with the Chinese and Asian region. So a lot of mindset change I need to think of, like how do I build a system that scales this much? So you see that I'm very complex person when it comes to this technical jargon, right? But for young people who like to do business, when they do example like the journey that I explained for 10 years to shorten it is very hard for me to explain. You may need to get some help like who is your 贵人? In my case, it's a lucky charm person. Then what is your support system in terms of like government assistance, support accelerator? So I joined the accelerator to test out my new idea, and they give me a lot of KPI, like just like how I run a company. Can you actually able to meet KPI on day-to-day or month-to-month basis? And really, this works very well. Like it makes me accountable. So a lot of people like you think, oh, starting business is just like child's play, like a playing toy game and all that, right? But when you run through the marathon, so this business is not like something like a fast sprint 100 meter. You're talking about life marathon. So every step, which I agree with Sarah's early point, this comes part under a planning, but yet you're able to execute things at the same time. So not many people can master these skills. So I learned from my lady friend how she multitask actually is a very plus point. How she does her day. Oh, morning time she do all this. Okay, more like time after the kids sleep, she'll do all this more. So you need to plan the day very well, and then you try to maintain energy. So now there's a mental wellness being. Sometimes if I'm not okay, then what should I do on this day? Do I do something to relieve myself, or do I talk to people? Yeah, sometimes I start my podcast because I like talking to people. So imagine pre-COVID, I never started thinking about why I want to share my story in podcasting, because nobody wants to listen to me, right?
Yeah.
But you realize that after
Everyone
in
has
the
a unique
SPR,
story, yeah.
yeah, so the
Everyone,
SPR member brought me the mastermind. He bring up a very good point. He said it doesn't matter how shitty or bad you're doing it, as long as 10 years later, you still have a lot of story, and the story can be your asset. People will listen to you, and then they eventually realize, oh, you have a very rich perspective of life experience. So see, people buy your conviction to do something before they do business with you. So that is something that I learned a lot. You need to do a lot of work for people to buy you, but once people got me in, a relationship can last a very long time. That is something that differentiates. If let's say I'm a small business owner versus a large entity like Amazon and all that. So they started also in their garage for many eons years ago. Until today, how they are going to maintain their business in long year, right? So Alibaba's assignment when they give to me, also in my classmate, they are thinking like how to last their business for 102 years, just to give a note. So why is this 102 years so important? In Chinese saying, they say they do business that lasts 3 generations. So after third generation, if your business survives, so you should be prosper for quite a while, long term. That is actually their idealistic vision.
oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your advice for that. And I'm sure many people will learn from you. As you say, I really totally agree. Like we should have a show that we can share our stories. As you say, you know, you will look back 10 years from now, and I'm sure you're gonna be really thankful what you have
Yeah.
shared. Yeah. So, like, what are the mistakes that we should avoid? Like, as an entrepreneurs, and I also heard about, well, as an entrepreneur and also as a former Olympian, I always hear about like failure is a key to success. It's actually, in fact, when I was a kid, that quote is actually one of my most important life quote that I normally posted on. I posted on the wall. It's like
Yeah.
failure is the key to success. I know some people may not agree with it and say, "Oh, failure is not the key to success," and you may replace a failure with many other things. It's the key to success. But for me, I encounter many failures in life, in sports, and also in life, and especially if you do not have a mentor, right? If you do not have a mentor or mentors, it is not easy to achieve a success in one shot. And many successful people, they actually encounter many failures in multiple shots. So what do you think about that? Like, how can we avoid mistakes in life or in business?
Oh, that is a good question. So if I'm thinking now, mistakes to avoid is, well, think through what you want here in the important context. Like if I want to say start a business, right? Do you, and you're still working for others? So let's say I'm using the scenario of people who wants to start something. If you think after a while when you still try to sleep every night, you think that 50 years at your older age later when you almost retire, do you wish that you should start this business a long time ago? So that if you're still thinking like that at the age of 50, I still do nothing, that is a really expensive mistake to make. So a lot of people, they lost their life vision working for others. Just like how I used to know my previous superiors who worked for the company for 10 years and they still do not know what they want in life. But that is
Oh,
definitely not the kind of mistake that you want to hear when you grow at the twilight age. So when you have the opportunity to try out something, that is also a very important scenario now in COVID. You need to act in spite of fear. So like people say fear will stop you from doing anything to act. But the true entrepreneur will say that can I act in something in spite of the fear? So fear is very common. Even if I'm running business or working for others, it's always a lot of fear. So now the thing is, when you make a mistake, does the mistake stop you from moving forward, or the mistake will help me to grow? So which mistake actually is the one important? So this is a very broad subject that was being explained to me. So why I want to emphasize, like, why is the mistake becomes critical, right? So if let's say the mistake doesn't cost my whole life reputation to gone, that is an expensive mistake to me lah. If your mistake is purely like how my interns is doing now, or I can't speak English very well because I'm from mainland China, can she actually build that mistake to grow? So you take it as a challenge to grow. That is a positive mistake to me. So that is also a distinction now which I teach. That I will keep asking myself, is the mistake that I'm making is a lifelong learning mistake, or those mistakes that significantly grow myself as a person? Yeah, so that is also in line with what Pat says when he says, master, you are a disaster before you become a master. So I remember this quote very well because he said in his lifetime, when he first started his online business, right, he also doesn't know how his SPI is going to grow like. Yeah, until he has certain things coming this way.
Yeah, good point. Good point is like another quote saying that it's not about the failure. A failure in life is just think about the lesson.
Yeah.
Nothing
so
about think about the lesson you learn from all this experience.
Yeah, so I think there's a challenge, like if you do your business right, just think yourself, do you learn a useful lesson from your failure?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Elton, for your advice and insight. And
Yeah.
I hope everyone that who are listening right now, remember to share this message to all your friends or relatives, and especially those who like to start your business, especially during this pandemic season. I'm not so sure how long this pandemic is going to last, even though we have vaccine. But in my personal opinion, I think this pandemic is going to last longer than we expected. That's my personal opinion. So yeah, remember to share, click like and comment. And what is your number one takeaway from today's sharing? I have lots. My number one
Thank you.
my number one takeaway is the lesson, like when you learn from your failure, what have you learned from that? And that can be your motivation, your trigger point to go forward. That's all for today, and all the best in all of you, and have confidence within you. Bye.